Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Tim for The Real Sports Talk. You can hit me up on Twitter at CashKelly_TRST. That's KASH Kelly_TRST. And also like The Real Sports Talk on Facebook. LeBron James versus Michael Jordan. This is a comparison that has been made since LeBron James was about 15 or 16 years old, playing at St. Vincent St. Mary's High School, when Michael Jordan's career had recently wrapped up and people were kind of looking for the next Jordan. A lot of people at that time, and I mean, I'll get into why I haven't done this video yet, but I want to kind of set the stage for this entire video because it's a video that I've looked at for a while and I've thought about, and I thought, you know, I want to wait till certain things happen so that this comparison is made. But I see a lot of people right now, I see a lot of LeBron James fans and just general observers of the game who have said that LeBron James is going to be better than Michael Jordan, and that he is going to be the greatest player of all time. And I'm just here to compare what they've done now and kind of connect the dots for what could happen in the future. And that's what I'm here to do in this video. I'm not going to necessarily say one way or the other, but I'll certainly give you my opinion on who I think will end up with the better career. But it is not necessarily blasphemous to say that you think LeBron James could be the best player of all time. But there is a lot of work to be done for LeBron James, especially in the playoffs for the next few seasons, if that comparison is going to be made. So, I mean, it's kind of a video that I've talked about before, but more in context of the Kobe Bryant to Michael Jordan comparison, because I've kind of ripped through that one. They're similar, they play a similar style, but Michael Jordan was more efficient and an overall better version of what Kobe Bryant is. They're similar players, but Michael Jordan was just a better overall player. LeBron James does not play the same position. That's important to keep in mind. LeBron James technically is a small forward. I think we all know that he pretty much plays every position out there on the court for the most part. He can play point guard, he can play small forward, he can play defensively, especially he can go down and play power forward on some of the bigger guys in the league. If Chris Bosh is struggling or whatever the case is, LeBron James can go down there in the post and do that. So certainly LeBron James is very versatile, and maybe you could even say he's more versatile than Michael Jordan. It is also important to remember, before I kind of read off some of the stats, that Michael Jordan did miss a few years in his career because he was off playing baseball, and then there obviously was the 99-2000 season and the 2001 season where Michael Jordan did not play in between there. I know that he wasn't necessarily a superstar when he came back with the Wizards, but if you look at some of the numbers that he put up with the Wizards, they were still really good numbers. If that was happening in the game now, we would consider Michael Jordan one of the better players in the game, and I mean, or one of the better point guards at the very least, with what we were getting out of him in 01, 02 with the Wizards, and then 02, 03. So that's also important to keep in mind. What I want everyone to do is just kind of sit back. If you're doing something else, just listen, tune into this and tune everything else out, because it's important to understand that there's similarities, there's differences, certain things are put this way and that way, and this is a comparison that I've wanted to do for a long time, but I needed to research more about Michael Jordan. I needed to watch more about Michael Jordan, because obviously I was really young when Michael Jordan was playing. I certainly saw some of his days with the Bulls and more with the Wizards live, but I certainly needed to go back and watch games, and I did that for a long time throughout this entire winter. Went back and watched games that Michael Jordan played. I've observed what LeBron James has done pretty much since his rookie season, because when I was a little kid, I did like LeBron James a lot. I like LeBron James. I wouldn't consider myself a fan of him. But when someone comes in the league with that much buzz, you take notice of what happens. And when everyone's talking about him, you want to be able to be intelligent and be able to talk about it with them. And that's why pretty much from day one I have watched a lot of LeBron James games. I'm a Sixers fan, so I really don't have a side in this, if anyone wants to put it that way. I'm not a Miami Heat or Cleveland the Cavs fan, and I'm also not a Washington Wizards or Chicago Bulls fan either. So, I mean, I really have no bias in this, because I'm not a Bulls. I certainly don't like the Bulls now, and I certainly don't like the Heat now, because they're both in the way of the Sixers, and I mean, I'd like to think that that's true, but there's probably more teams in the way of the Sixers. Let me go through some of their career accomplishments and stats, and we'll go from there. Statistically, Jordan has, in point-wise, LeBron James has averaged 27.6 points per game throughout his NBA career. Michael Jordan averaged 30.1. LeBron James' career high in points was 31.4 in 05-06, when in that season he shot 48%. That is off the charts, 48% when you're shooting that well. That is legendary status. And I think that it is important to remember, regardless of who comes out on top here, that both of these guys are all-time great players. No matter what your opinion is of who is the better player and overall where you rank both of these guys, whether you like them or don't like them, it's important to remember how good that both of them are as overall players. LeBron James' second best season in terms of points was 30 on the dot in 07-08 when he shot 48.4%. So two really, really good seasons where he averaged a shooting percentage that for that amount of points, and with the team that he was playing with, that is very, very impressive. People like to act like LeBron James had a good team in Cleveland, especially early on. He did not have a good team. And when you think about some of the quote-unquote really good players that he played with, guys like Shaq, who was done when they got him and didn't even play in the playoffs the season he was there. Ben Wallace couldn't play offense at any point in his career, and he was all defensive, and he was older when he was there. You had Mo Williams, who shrunk a lot in the playoffs, was a pretty decent player, but he's not going to be like the second best player when you go to win a championship. Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Boobie Gibson, the list goes on. But the teams that he had there early on were not very good. That being said, in the Doug Collins days out in Chicago, the teams that Michael Jordan had weren't exactly stacked teams either. And that was one of the knocks early on in Michael Jordan's career, was that he could never finish that. He was clearly the regular season best player, but that he could not finish it when it counted. And I know it sounds stupid now, but it seems like we have that same discussion with LeBron James. And you kind of wonder, in 3 or 4 years or 5 years, are we going to look back on some of these discussions we have about LeBron James, and he might have 2 or 3, maybe even more championships. According to him, he's going to have 7. So, I mean, we might look back at this and just think, LeBron was only in the league for 8 years. I mean, he had how many more seasons left, and we were this worried they didn't have a ring? That might be something that we look back at in a few years and say, that really didn't make sense to be that concerned that he didn't have a ring, when he was still putting up great numbers, and in a lot of those years, it wasn't necessarily his fault. Now, last year against the Mavericks, I would never try to say that it wasn't LeBron's fault. Now, it doesn't all go on LeBron, but a lot of it does. By his standards, he choked in the NBA Finals last year, and if you're going to deny that, then you're a LeBron James fanboy, I'll put it that way. In some of the other stats, turnovers-wise, Jordan's career average is 2.7, LeBron is 3.3. And one thing I did not mention that I wanted to mention is that Jordan played 15 total seasons, but actually 2 of those seasons, in 85-86 he missed pretty much all the season, and then in 94-95 he only played 17 games. So really, Michael Jordan played 13 seasons if you want to really look at it and look in depth at some of these numbers. Jordan averaged 2.7 turnovers in his career. LeBron averaged 3.3 turnovers. So Jordan has him there. In terms of steals, Jordan, it's important to remember that Jordan played a different position. He was a guard, so certainly you would expect him to have more steals. 2.3 steals to LeBron's 1.7. In terms of blocks, both of them are at 0.8 for their career, 0.8 average. That is a number that, as LeBron James, I think he's kind of embraced his size more now. Early on when he came in, it wasn't that he was soft, but it was kind of like he wanted to be more out on the perimeter, shoot more, and that's why early on in his career, he got a reputation as a bad shooter. He's become a much better overall shooter, and part of that reason is that he is willing to drive more into the lane now, which keeps people honest when you're playing on him defensively. So in terms of blocks, I would expect that throughout the remainder of LeBron James' career, he will improve that number that he's at. But it is somewhat of a knock on him in this argument that Jordan has the same amount of blocks. In my mind, that's kind of a knock. Assist-wise, this is very telling. LeBron James, who is not a guard, I know that Jordan's a shooting guard, but But LeBron James is a small forward. LeBron James has a career average of 6.9 assists to Michael Jordan's 5.3 assists. It's telling. I mean, there's certainly numbers here that could lead you to think either way, and if you're one of the people trying to make a case for LeBron, I'm not trying to make a case for either, I'm just trying to present both sides, then that would certainly be a number that you bring. Because while LeBron James, or while Michael Jordan's not a point guard, you would still expect, because he's a guard, that he has more of those numbers. And you would expect that because of later on having some of the better teammates, that he would have had better numbers than LeBron James, who's only been with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh for 2 seasons. And really, overall, assists-wise, those 2 seasons, he had better seasons than those in Cleveland when he wasn't playing with as good of players. His last 3 seasons in Cleveland, he averaged 7.2 assists in 07-08 and 08-09, and then 8.6 in 2009-2010, the year that he won his most recent MVP. And we'll get to the MVP and accolades like that in a moment. Rebounds-wise, this is a number you would expect LeBron to have, and he does by a slight margin. Jordan has 6.3 career rebounds, and LeBron James has 7.1 career averages throughout his career. In offensive rebounds is a number that I do like to look at, because defensively, a lot of times on defensive rebounds, you're going to get balls that just kind of pop off, and you're just standing in the right place. That's why we tend to see guys, if they have 10 if they have 10 total rebounds, maybe 1 or 2 of those is an offensive rebound, but most of them is the rebounds are coming defensively. So we'll look at both of those. Career-wise, LeBron James has 5.9 career defensive rebounds, while Michael Jordan has 4.7. Again, the size does come into play. But offensively, in an era where they're a better overall big man, and the big man did not have to worry about the rules of the no defensive 3 seconds, so Michael Jordan had extra to fight with. Michael Jordan had 1.6 career offensive rebounds, while LeBron James had 1.2 career. So I mean, that seems small, but it all kind of adds up when you're trying to make a debate on these 2 guys, and it's just something that I want to bring into context. Free throw percentage, Michael Jordan is at 83.5%, while LeBron James is at 74.6%. LeBron James isn't a terrible free throw shooter, but he's not great, and he's had certainly some seasons like in 06-07 when he shot under 70%, where he really was not a very good 3-point shooter. That's something that if he improved his free throw shooting, he could probably average closer to 30 points like he did earlier on in his career than what he does now, especially since now he's kind of embraced his perimeter game. He's going to be going to the line more, and especially since a lot of times guys like LeBron James in today's NBA get the benefit of the call. So if he goes up and flinches, in all likelihood you're going to see the ref blowing his whistle, so LeBron James will get that call. 3-point percentage-wise, Michael Jordan, this is where he kind of loses a lot of people, is a career 32.7 career throw shooter, and then LeBron James is 33.1. Michael Jordan's numbers, though, are kind of skewed, because if you look throughout a lot of the years, he did have some very good years shooting from behind the arc, but he also had some years like his 01-02 season with the Wizards where he shot 18.9%, and then early on in his career he really struggled from behind the 3-point line. One of the knocks on him early on, similar to kind of LeBron, was that he could not shoot as well as he kind of needed to, because people said all he could do is dunk. Now, if you look at some of his shooting percentage, that wasn't true, but he was not a great shooter from behind the line, and that was an observance from more of a casual fan saying that, and there almost is something to that because of the 3-point percentages that he was putting up earlier in his career. But then again, casual fans weren't putting it that way, they're just saying it in general, which is why when you try and have this type of debate with a casual fan, it doesn't really work. You almost need to be an expert to understand this, or at least be informed about it to make an informed judgment. Field goal percentage is one of the key things that I look at, because there's so many guys over the course of the NBA that, yeah, you can average 25 points a game, but if you're shooting 43%, it's still a great accomplishment. You're a volume scorer, but you're not like the all-time like great type players, which I don't necessarily know if LeBron James is quite in that discussion yet, but the all-time great players are the ones that can score and they are efficient when they do it, and that's what LeBron James has become. Now, early on in his career, he was not that, which is why, to this point, Michael Jordan shoots just under 50% at 49.7, and LeBron James is at 48.3. LeBron James, however, this season shot 53%, which is higher than Jordan did in every season except one or two. He actually had 3 seasons where he shot over 53%, close to 54 in all 3 of those seasons. So he certainly did have some years where he shot 53, but how much better or how much LeBron has improved with his shot judgment, some of his overall moves to get open shot, his shot selection, it kind of leads you to believe that before the end of his career, and he's only 27 years old, it's hard to believe considering this is his 9th season in the league, you'd think that before the end of his career, he'll probably get over the 50% mark, and he'll probably be past Jordan, because ultimately, LeBron James is going to have close to a 20-year career. Michael Jordan, as we said, technically played pretty much 13 seasons in the NBA because of injuries, because of missing time for baseball, and because of his second retirement. He did he kind of lost some of the seasons that he could have padded some of these numbers with. In terms, and that for the most part is all the stats that I wanted to bring up. Now, two things that I want to remind people of are the fact that the NBA took out the defense, or put in the defensive 3 seconds, where today you see a lot of guys go into the lane and pretty much, if they're going to dunk it, they're going to dunk it, because no one's going to come in and waste a foul on that when the chances of blocking a 6'9", 275 guy like LeBron James are not very good. Because, I mean, are you honestly, how many of the big guys are going to be able to take him down? Even if they do, because he's LeBron James, you're probably going to get a foul called on you, and that's the issue with doing that. So that's why we see a lot of the bigger superstars today, they're able to go through the lane and dunk a lot easier, make a lot more layups. LeBron James certainly isn't soft, although he does flop. I think there's a difference between flopping and being soft, because LeBron James will go in hard at the rim. I mean, he's not like Pau Gasol soft, but or even what Blake Griffin sometimes is put at by some people. He's not like that, but he certainly does flop. And with the way that the refs call the game today, I'm not sure that that's necessarily something that isn't. I think it's pretty much smart. If they're going to continue to give you a call, then you're going to continue to do what gets you the call and what gives your team a better overall chance to win. Another rule that they took out, though, that really sways the argument towards Jordan and the reason that he might have had a lower three-point percentage throughout his career is the defensive hand checking on the perimeter is no longer allowed. So that makes it easier for guys like LeBron and Kobe Bryant now to shoot threes, and I mean anyone that's playing in the game now to shoot threes. This rule was put in I believe 2002, so it wasn't even like LeBron James in Kobe Bryant's case. Let's just bring that in for a second. I'm not trying to bring Kobe Bryant into this comparison because I've sort of done that already with Kobe and LeBron and Kobe and Jordan. But I just want to bring this case in because Kobe came to the league in 96, so there were 5 or 6 seasons or he's drafted in 96. There's 5 or 6 seasons where he was playing under the rules of the same type of Jordan, where if you're going to drive into the lane, you're probably going to get fouled pretty hard. You might dunk it, but you're going to get fouled pretty hard, and your chances of dunking aren't great. And you're going to get up and you're going to be really sore on that. He also had the times where you're not just going to be able to go past the guy's legs. Like, if you really sit down and watch how LeBron James and guys now have to play defense, and while this is kind of a drawback from LeBron offensively, if you look at him defensively, you could certainly make the case, I think, that he will end up being a better overall defender when things are said and done because of the limitations that he has. He can't put his arm up on the guy, really. You can do that when he's playing down in the post, but a lot of times you'll see him in the perimeter. And because he has such a big wingspan, and because he also is just a big overall person, and he's agile for how big he is, it's very tough for people to get around LeBron James at the perimeter. There's times where you will see him just kind of let them by, but the times where LeBron really needs to clamp down, I think the time where last season in the Eastern Conference Finals when LeBron James went up and block Derrick Rose basically on the perimeter. Derrick Rose had tried to get by him, but he just could not go around him, so he settled for a shot and LeBron blocked it. Defensively for LeBron on the perimeter, it's harder to play now because of some of the rules, some of the risks of making fouls that were not there during Jordan's time. That being said, though, that goes both ways. Offensively, for LeBron James, it's easier to get around some of the guys that are playing on defense, and I don't think that it's any secret that the defense now is lazier than what it was when Jordan played. I'm not trying to sway your argument either way because, again, I just presented both sides, but it's just something to keep in mind when you're having this debate and when you're really trying to just go straight down the middle and get a fair answer on who's an overall better player. It's something to just keep in mind. Let's put it that way. Okay, now what I want to do is just go over some of the career accolades, and Jordan's career accolades is a lot easier to find. If you search for LeBron stuff, you're going to find a lot more stuff about the decision and everything, and that's something I'm not bringing in because for as good as a team as LeBron James now does have, with guys like not only Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, but he has a defensive stud like Shane Battier. He has some solid point guards like Mario Chalmers and Norris Cole. Late in Michael Jordan's career, let's not act like he didn't have Scottie Pippen. The year that Jordan, one of the years that Jordan was out, Scottie Pippen, I believe, won an MVP. Let's not act like Scottie Pippen wasn't a great teammate. Scottie Pippen's one of the top 50 players, some people believe higher, that have ever played in this game. Dennis Rodman, the Worm, he is a Hall of Famer. I mean, LeBron James had some pretty solid overall teammates. Michael Jordan had some pretty solid overall teammates, and I'm going to give you a few more of his teammates in a second, but one of the things that is also important to keep in mind is that when you think about the coachings and the situations that they were in, it really seems like the situation that Michael Jordan was in, he was with a more stable franchise. As we've seen, Dan Gilbert is not a very stable person. Mike Brown, we've seen it this year with the Lakers, and we saw it overall. His play calling was not good. He didn't put LeBron James in great positions to have success. When Kobe Bryant had Phil Jackson, which he has had for pretty much his entire career, there were times where he had Rudy Tomjanovich and a few other guys, but for the most part, for his career where he's really won all, I think he's won all his rings. Yeah, he's won all his rings with Phil Jackson. Or no, why did I say Kobe Bryant? Michael Jordan, I should say, had Doug Collins, who is an extremely underrated coach. What Doug Collins does is he gets you to play at your best. He's not a championship coach. I really don't believe that he is a championship coach. But overall, he is a pretty solid coach. I take him over Eric Spoelstra or Mike Brown. And then Phil Jackson's probably the best coach of all time. So it's important to remember that. Now, one of the things, I do want to mention some of Michael Jordan's best teammates ever. And I just lost the list I was looking at because I had some of them down, but I want to mention just a few other to keep this argument fair. Horace Grant, John Paxson, B.J. Armstrong, Tony Kukoc, Charles Oakley, Stacey King. I mean, there's a lot of overall players that LeBron James or that Michael Jordan played with that were very good players overall too. So as much as we like to act like LeBron James played or plays with this God team now, even though they didn't win the NBA Finals last year because they were so good, Michael Jordan didn't have a... When Michael Jordan was winning his championships, especially after he came back from baseball, he was playing with some damn good teams that were very crucial to his success. And I'm not taking that away from Michael Jordan, but people are going to give you this spin that, oh, Michael Jordan played with nobody. Michael Jordan was a one-man team, just like they do now with other players like, oh, Kevin Durant. He doesn't have Russell Westbrook right there. Kobe Bryant didn't have Shaq. People will sway an argument away from LeBron James, and I'm not trying to sway an argument towards LeBron James. I'm just presenting what is said out there, some of the criticisms of him, and how they are not correct. That's important to keep in mind when you're having this debate, because if you really want to be taken seriously, you can't just come in and say, LeBron James is the best player of all time, end of story. Or Michael Jordan, you can get away with saying Michael Jordan is just the best player of all time. But if you really go to someone that even, they might be flawed in an argument, But if you go into someone that knows a lot about, let's say, Larry Bird, if they know more than you about Larry Bird than what you know about what Michael Jordan's done, some of his career accomplishments, then what they're going to be able to do in an argument is just maybe not even put up great points, but what they can do is they can name off all these things, and it ends up by the end of the debate that they know. It sounds like to someone who's just a third-party person that's just listening to the debate, it sounds a lot better for that person because they know more about their player, they can name more about what they've done, and if you can't name something about, let's say, Michael Jordan, well then people begin to wonder, well, is he really that good, or does that other person have a case? So you need to bring all your facts to an argument where you're going to have this. So let's go over some of the career accomplishments. Season MVPs. Michael Jordan has won 5 MVPs, 87, 88, 90, 91, 91, 92, 95, 96, and his final season with the Bulls, 97, 98. I'm not going to speculate about LeBron James and things that people think that he should have won. I'll name the 2 that he does have, and it's pretty much a lock at this point that he will win a third one. Kevin Durant certainly had a very, very good season. Would have won an MVP in pretty much every year, but LeBron James will be a lock pretty much to win the MVP because I've seen some of the experts already give their cases, and it's almost, if you get 10 people together, 8.5 of them on an average are going to take LeBron James in the MVP race. So he will have 3 MVPs before the season is over. NBA championships, obviously LeBron James at this point has 0. If you think he's going to win that at the end of the season, then you think he's going to win that. I'm not going to even throw that into the argument because I'm not going to sway anyone's opinion on that. At this point, LeBron James has 0 championships and 0 Finals MVP to go to Michael Jordan's 6 championships and his 6 Finals MVPs. Now, I think Finals MVPs are really, I think they're irrelevant, especially what they've become now. I don't know if the voting has always been done by the fans, which I believe it's done now, but at this point it's just kind of, okay, who's the most popular guy, who has the best story coming into this, and who's the one that we want to pad his career legacies and everything like that. So I don't take a ton into Finals MVPs. Championships, they certainly don't come first in the equation, or you could make a case that Robert Horry is a better player than Michael Jordan, but it's not, when I say that it's a team thing and that's not what you bring to an argument, I don't mean that you don't bring that up at any point in an argument, but if that's your first point, then you really don't have a very good case. Michael Jordan's a 6-time NBA champion. He won in 90, 91, 91, 92, 93, 92, 93, 95, 96, 96, 97, and 97, 98, his final season in Chicago. And how the Bulls let him go after that, I will never understand. And they paid for it, so they got Derrick Rose. But, I mean, it's tough to grasp and put into context exactly how much a championship means. But the fact that Michael Jordan has 6 championships so far, and that's huge. He did that in 13 seasons. But the thing to also remember is that Michael Jordan didn't win a title his first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons. LeBron James is in his 9th season, but LeBron James is going to be able to play longer than what Michael Jordan did unless LeBron James really takes up his idea to go play in the NFL, which isn't actually going to happen. So LeBron James is ultimately going to have closer to a 20-year career. So there's a very good chance he's got, after this, I think he can actually opt out after next season with the Miami Heat. The chance of him doing that are not great, although I think everyone thinks it would be a great story if he would go back to the Cleveland Cavs and win an NBA championship there. I think that would be a good story. I don't know if everyone else does, but I think that ultimately he'll stay in Miami. But he signed a 6-year deal, so in 2 years, Dwayne Wade will be about 32 years old. Chris Bosh will be right in the same age. LeBron will be about 29, 30 years old. So at that point, we'll see what he does, but he'll still have 6 or 7 really good seasons left in him, I believe, because he takes he's in great shape. He's never really had a huge injury, knock on wood. You never want to see a guy get injured. And if he could last through a shortened season like this and play every single game, every single night, then you tend to think that he is kind of one of those guys that's going to be able to prolong his career the same way that we see guys in the game now, like Kobe Bryant, who are going to be able to do that, Even though Kobe Bryant has some nagging things, he's never really had this a huge injury. So LeBron, you would figure he'll get 1 or 2 at the very least in Miami. Depending on when he leaves, you would still think that at age 30 or 31, LeBron James, if he were able to touch that free agent market, I don't know if it could ever be as big as what it was. And I don't know if LeBron James would allow it to be as big as what it was in his first, when he ultimately went out into free agency. Because the decision, obviously, in a lot of people's mind has kind of tainted LeBron James' career, whatever. But eventually, he will probably be a free agent again, whether it's at age like 29 or whether it's at like age 33. Because you'd think at age 33, Dwayne Wade will pretty much be done at that point because he'll be like 35 or 6. And you'd think that at that point, his career would be pretty much done, and that maybe LeBron James would decide to go somewhere else and go to a different team, and at that point he is a huge free agent again, and he could go join another team and probably win 2 or 3 more titles. So by the end of this, LeBron James, I think, is somewhere between 3 and 5 titles. So just keep that in mind. Understand that while Michael Jordan played a shorter career, we're only going off the first 8 years of what LeBron James has done so far in his career, and that's important to go off of as well. The NBA scoring titles, LeBron James has won because he's more of an all-around overall player. He's not just a straight-up scorer. Michael Jordan earlier on in his career was a very good scorer, and he ended up being the best overall player in the game in pretty much everyone's opinion of all time, but he was playing in a position where it's probably a lot more friendly. LeBron, especially now, will defer to Dwayne Wade sometimes, and I think that sometimes that's a bad thing, but when you're having a bad game, it's not always a necessary thing to go up there and end up shot-jacking and killing your team when you have another star on your team who can help you win some games that you might not have won in the previous case. So LeBron James, scoring titles-wise, will never touch Michael Jordan. Now, with the all-defensive teams and things like that, I do not have that for LeBron James, but what I do, I think we understand how good of a defender LeBron James is, and I also do not have how many times he was an All-NBA first team, but Michael Jordan is an All-NBA first team 10 times, All-Defensive first team 9 times, and LeBron James will be pretty close to both of those. So probably pass him in the All-NBA first team. It'd be very close if he doesn't pass him in the All-Defensive first team. Defensive Player of the Year awards, Michael Jordan has 1. LeBron James is always right there in the top 5, usually closer at 2 or 3, but he's had guys like Tyson Chandler, Dwight Howard beat him out. I think that Dwight Howard won it the first year, but the second year last year, LeBron James probably should have been the Defensive Player of the Year. This year, Tyson Chandler had a great year, and Serge Ibaka also has emerged as a tremendous defender. Right now, the big blocking centers or power forwards are kind of what the trend is for winning these Defensive Player of the Year awards, because they kind of hold together the whole defense. They're the anchor of that defense, and it makes sense why people look at it that way. So you'd think LeBron James will get a Defensive Player of the Year award at some point, but he's right in his prime probably of what he's going to be at 27 defensively right now. So it is very possible that as he gets older, at age 32 or 33, that maybe his offensive game is still pretty much as good, but defensively he drops off a little bit. So it is very possible that he doesn't end up ever winning a Defensive Player of the Year award. But I pretty much understand that they are both tremendous defenders. All-Star games, Michael Jordan went to 14 All-Star games, 84-85, 85-86, 86-87, 87-88, 88... Yeah, okay, I'm not going to name all these. The point is, some of those years he was injured, and LeBron James has made it 8 seasons in a row every year but his rookie year. LeBron James has been an All-Star. And I look at LeBron James as an all-star and Michael Jordan as an all-star, and it's like a nice thing to add on to your plaque at the Hall of Fame, but really it means nothing, because we know how the All-Star Game voting goes at this point in every sport. It's such a joke. To really take that too seriously doesn't make a lot of sense. And let's continue to go through some of these career accomplishments. All-Star Game MVPs, Michael Jordan has 3, LeBron James has 1. Again, the way I haven't gone back and watched a ton of the old All-Star games, but we know now that the All-Star games are show till the 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I'm not going to put a ton into what anyone does as in the All-Star Game MVP. LeBron James does have one, and I think we all would assume that he'll end up winning a few more at some point in his career. So we'll see. I really don't take that into account. LeBron James has never been in the dunk contest. That's been kind of a knock because I think that a lot of people feel like if guys like him and some of the other stars in the game went back into the dunk contest, that maybe it would become good again. Instead, we're stuck with like Paul George, who's a good player, but I mean, he's not one of the best in the game. We're stuck with guys like that in the dunk contest, and it's really just become an irrelevant thing at this point. Michael Jordan won 2 of those. Really don't look at it as anything huge. Rookie of the Year, LeBron James has 1, and Michael Jordan has 1, so they're both same there. Olympic gold medal, I'll just throw this in there. It really means nothing to their NBA legacy. LeBron James has 1. I'm sure he'll get another one this summer, and Michael Jordan has 2, so they'll be tied at the end of this summer, and you'd think LeBron James will go to probably 2 more Olympics, so we'll probably pass him at some point in his career. It does not matter. Olympic things, I mean, people want to say, oh, well, this guy has more Olympic gold medals than that. What does that really matter? Everyone knows if the U.S. ever really tries to win and ever really puts out a full effort, then they're going to go out and they're going to beat pretty much every team by like 30 or 40 points. And really, the games aren't even worth watching in a lot of cases. So I don't take really anything into that. If you want to look at it, then I put it out there for you. I didn't act like it wasn't out there, but I put it out there for you. So that's kind of the accolades and the career statistics that we've seen from these two guys. And to kind of wrap this up, what I want to say is that at this point, a lot of people have begun to realize that while they might not like LeBron James, he is a tremendous overall player, and he's one of the most efficient players that this game has ever seen. That being said, Michael Jordan did that for an entire career, and LeBron James still has a lot of work to do in that case, or in that department, I should say. There's a lot of work to be done for LeBron James. For someone to say that they think at some point LeBron James could be in the discussion for greatest player of all time, I don't think that publicly it will ever be accepted, because there's always going to be the person that says, oh, well, he went to Wade's team. There's always going to be the person that just refuses to ever compare anyone to Michael Jordan. But I don't know if it's necessarily impossible that he's in that discussion. He's certainly not in it right now, and it bothers me when we put guys like him and Kobe, and we just forget about how good guys like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaquille O'Neal, how good Will Chamberlain, Bill Russell, how good some of these players really were and what they meant to the game. It bothers me when we just skip over their careers and act like it didn't happen. So I wouldn't put LeBron James in that discussion yet. Championship-wise, to ever get a public perception as the greatest player of all time, you're going to have to probably beat Michael Jordan in championships. And LeBron James, I can tell you flat out, will never win more than 6 NBA championships, and in all likelihood, he won't win 6. Now, a few years ago, Kobe Bryant had 2 championships, and people had a knock on him that, oh, he'll never win without Shaq, and a few years later, we're sitting here, he's got 5, everyone's back on Kobe's bandwagon, and they're willing to kind of say that, you know, he's one of the best players of all time. I think that we put him too high in some cases, but for all intents and purposes, at least, he's a top 20 player of all time. In a lot of people's mind, top 10, I put him in the top 15, between 10 and 15 somewhere, and he's a great player. So if LeBron James is able to win 3 or 4 titles, then maybe he ends up in that discussion at some point, but that's kind of what it's going to take. In my personal opinion, Michael Jordan, for what he did to the game, globalizing it, that also is an aspect that is kind of lost. What he did and what he meant to this game, and how it was probably harder to play in the game in his time because of some of the defensive rules, and because I think now some of the defenders are just plain lazy. I would say that I think when it's all said and done, LeBron James will be a top 10 player of all time, and maybe even top 5. A lot's going to have to change with people's public opinions of him. I'm always going to give you my opinion based on whether I like someone or whether I don't like them. I'm going to give you my opinion on what they are as a player. A lot of people have trouble sorting out whether they like a guy or whether he's on a team they like or whatever the case is. Sorting that out from, oh no, he's still a really good player, I just don't like him. You can, if you can do that, then you can be an analyst. If you can't get away from saying that, well, LeBron James did the decision, and I don't like how he did it, so he sucks. If you do that, then you can't be taken seriously when you're ever making these arguments. It's plain and simple like that. Leave me your thoughts on this entire debate, because I'm sure this will get a ton of views, because people like to have these type of debates. I'm sure that there's going to be a ton of people who comment on this video without ever watching it, blasting me for ever bringing this up. But then if you really listen, I believe Michael Jordan is at this point the better player, clearly. I think at some point LeBron James maybe could reach a status similar to him. I don't think that he will, but in terms of being like the best player of all time, I think he'll be a top 10 player. And it's a comparison that people have asked me and asked me and asked me. Here's my real opinion. This is called The Real Sports Talk. I give you my real opinion, and it might not be the popular one, but in a few years you might look back and say, hey, he was right.